So the first season of Hulu Rama is finally over. All 10 episodes have been out. I have seen them all, and what is there to say? Not much. What's up, everybody? This is Mike Vitree's company here to talk about some more future Rama. So this is just going to be a quick little overview of kind of episodes 9 and 10, my thoughts on those, and my thoughts on the entire season overall. Um, just kind of not really straight criticism or anything like that, or critical review, objectivity, anything like that. Just kind of my general thoughts after, seeing the last two episodes yesterday and then a couple hours ago again, and just how I've things maybe I thought about or felt after seeing, the first episode of the season month ago, whenever it first came out. So, episode 9 was a very classic Futurama gag, slightly different twist. It was once again one of their uh, Futurama stories in a different world animation gimmick thing, like how they would do, um, you know, children's TV things and anime. So they had stuff where it's like they were once GI Joes. They once did like an anime Gundam kind of thing, Speed Racer and all that, and then kind of the Futurama reimagined. And this time, it was all kind of centered around old child toys, like the wind up with a key toys, Hot Wheels, rubber ducks, and those like Bop It egg looking things. And instead of just kind of like just going into them, doing them, or something like the What If machine, it was just a random story about Leela falling in love with the Prince of Space and having like kind of like probably going like no, and then also be like, but I just want her happy so she can marry that guy. And it's medieval, and ends up being jousting and duels between all of like the little key points. There would be a commercial break for a new toy, and then it would go into Futurama as rubber ducks and Futurama as Hot Wheels and things like that. It's a very Futurama premise. They've done two or three, if you count the What If episodes, kind of with it. Um, like when was it where Fry was like, "What if life was more like a video game?" Things like that. Uh, I'd say about two or three episodes that they've done, maybe four, where they've done a gimmick like this. So it's a very Futurama thing to do. Um, I don't think it's executed as well as before. The random Leela falling in love with a different guy and Fry being like upset about it but okay with it, and then trying to support them and jokes ensue thing was a little, I don't know, it just didn't land for me. A lot of those jokes didn't 100% land. I liked the Hot Wheels section, how they kind of made it like the Ring but they're cars, and I like how like Zoidberg's a punch buggy because he's the only one who's getting shit on, but then he ends up being the bad guy who's sent the Ring video out and is killing all the friends so he can take their parts and merge together to be one car that are friends forever. It feels like old Futurama would have had a point to make about, you know, everyone being shitty to Zoidberg, and maybe you should be nice to him, but then they're still kind of shitty to him at the end, but realizing they like him. Like they've done that a couple times with Hermes and the Professor, but this time it was just 100% shit on Zoidberg and look at their Hot Wheels. The rubber ducky one, that was cute. I got a couple chuckles out of it. I like how um the little boppers, it was like, oh look, they're actually eggs. And so when they have a big rubber chicken versus the eggs war, and then finally uh pass, she as the egg cracks open to be a rubber duck, and then him as the duck dies, and there's just an egg left there. So it was it's the chicken for the egg, Romeo and Juliet, and it's rubber duckies and Bobby things, so it's funny. I don't know. It like half landed for me, half not. Very Futurama-y thing to do. I don't know. There's not a whole lot. Didn't really feel much for it. Didn't have much opinion on it. I thought it was just all right. Episode 10. This one, it felt like a Futurama end. Now, it's a classic kind of Futurama end of a season thing. There's a bunch of stuff going on. It's kind of philosophical. It leaves in a kind of like, the world frozen moment. World's going slower. They're jumping through a black hole. Like a kind of like a somewhat end it in case they don't get another season ending, and then they can really flex their science brains because they're all very educated writers. And so the whole thing is that the professor creates a simulation of the universe, and it's all pixelated. And as it goes along, you see them like start to catch up with the real world. They eventually end up at the um, beginning of this season as their little pixels, and you see a little pixelated, little 3 pixel Fry going, "I, Fry, will watch every TV show on Earth," and everything like that. And there's a Bender as a robot. Amy telling him that he isn't real life; he's AI. Uh, doesn't really exist. He pretty much is a simulation kind of thing, and him having an existential crisis about it, and he falls in love with the um simulation people. So whenever the professor's like, "Oh, this is drawing too much power for the power bill, we need to turn them off," Bender doesn't want to, wants to save them. Um, then the professor comes up with a way to uh generate power for the computer that's running the simulation through putting a turbine in the sewer and doing hydroelectric, and that creates makes it turn the simulation from pixels into looking just like the real world. And then the simulation people then create their own simulation, and it's like, oh my god. And that one went to modern day even quicker, so everyone's like, oh my god, we just did the delivery to space Italy like yesterday. The simulation's already there. What if we're in a simulation? And so there's a lot of pontificating. What if the real world wasn't a simulation? Who cares? I'd want to know if I wasn't one, but I don't want to know if I am in one. That kinds of stuff. Lots of set up Futurama joke, and Bender, once goes into the simulation to warn them about, hey, don't do what you're doing to try to prove that you're in a simulation, because so their whole, I guess I'll go back to that. Their whole thing is, in the first simulation, they devised a way to prove if they are in a simulation by making a magnetic star implode, because the in order to calculate and render how that would look and happen, it would overload the computer. They're saying if we do that, the whole universe should start to pixelate and glitch out, and we'll be able to know if we're in a simulation. So in the real world, professors the professor sends Bender in to tell them, hey, not to do that. But while Bender's there, he realizes it doesn't really matter if we're in a simulation. And then so but then there's this whole thing where it's like Bender shouldn't be able to come back to the real world when he does this, but he does. But did he? Or is it the fact that what we think is the real world of Futurama is the simulation itself, and that was a different Bender that came into that simulation and then told him how to fix their simulation and live in that world, because the professor ended up underclocking the computer So while it's still processing that whole simulation universe, 1 second to them is like decades in the real world. So it basically looks like they're frozen or in a coma. So there's lots of, there's just lots of jokes. There's some jokes about quantum mechanics and speed of light and everything like that, and to pointing towards the idea that we are and the world is in a simulation, things like that. It was, I thought it was well done. Um, Once again, it was kind of like half the jokes landed, nothing really made me laugh outright. Got a good couple chuckles, smiled a lot, but nothing really going, oh my god, this is so great and deep TV. I thought it was just okay. And that kind of just leads me to this whole season altogether. I thought there was some good stuff. I thought the first episode about all the binging models and streaming and stuff like that, I thought that had some good comedy bits to it. It looked like it was like, okay, coming swinging okay. But then there were some other ones that I just didn't really care about. Some ones that I really liked, like I really liked the Amazon episode. Stuff that felt dated, stuff that felt like, they wrote this years ago and they're just now getting to make it. It's still very much structured to have commercial breaks, even though it's streaming, which isn't a huge deal, but I sometimes feel like if it isn't a old TV show that was put onto streaming for binging, that maybe you don't do some of the weird commercial transitions and things like that that just make it feel like this was supposed to be made for TV, then was made to streaming. Like you can see, like they're always cutting for non-existent commercial breaks in this whole season. It doesn't really put you out of it. You just kind of notice it sometimes, where like commercial would have been there. Um, so it's like stories going, and then cuts to black. Does a weird uh establishing shot of where they are, and then it picks up immediately with the scene, and it's like, was that just supposed to be like? It's like you're like, okay, that was where a commercial would have been, but story wise and like breathing wise and joint, I feel like it wasn't 100% necessary every time. Sometimes it was like a nice kind of let the joke breathe a little bit thing, but it didn't really need to be there because this is streaming. There's no commercials unless they timed it out for a ad break on Hulu, which I don't know. They could have done that, um, which would make sense because every single streaming thing is going to have its own ad tier eventually. You're basically gonna have commercial breaks in streaming, all just like regular cable. So maybe it worked just if you watch it ad free, didn't necessarily, and you're sitting there going, why are they pausing for a commercial? There's no commercial. Again, doesn't really take you out of it, make you enjoy it any less. It's just kind of something I noticed. Um, but yeah, so back to overall thoughts. Sorry about that little tangent transition. Overall season, I think just okay. I don't think it came out. I think it was a little nervous to kind of maybe figure out what it wanted to be in modern times, I guess, in this point in history of cinema and entertainment. I think it's hard to um really just kind of do what you want. There's always going to be people thinking about Twitter people and activists and everything like that, and trying to play both sides or add some little satirical things, I think is hard to do if you don't have the balls to just kind of pick one side or the other, or just really, really do everything fairly. So it just the whole season just kind of felt like they were like, we have ideas. Maybe there was some studio interruption. Maybe there's some writing and execution things that didn't quite work. But I think they had a lot of good ideas that maybe just weren't polished, or maybe got through the process, got shipped down to what they were. But overall, I if I'm ever rewatching Futurama, I'll probably watch the season over again. I will probably watch and review the next one that comes out. If another one comes out, that's just a cattail. It's fine. And but yeah, I think it wasn't terrible. It didn't come back and go. It didn't hit you go like boom, Futurama back with the classics with the nice stuff, and there's just a tail there again. It just kind of it didn't splash. It didn't wasn't a huge splash. It was kind of like a little. Blub, blub. It wasn't it jumped in, didn't make a huge splash, but for parts to enjoy, absolutely. Hey, don't rub your face on the microphone and make the sound weird, please. What are you doing? Okay, thank you. All right, well, let me know what y'all think about the season or these two episodes in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe. Uh, are you looking forward to the next season? Did this season do anything for you? Do you think they still have the talent to make this show? Anything? Did it go woke? Are they gonna go broke? Well, let me know what you think down in the comments below. And thank you very much for watching. Bye.